Okay, beautiful people, we are back, and this is Green Mountain Mornings on 100.3 FM, AM 1490. I am your host, Olga Peters, 21 minutes past the top of the hour. And welcome back to the studio via the telephone, Melanie Winters, news editor for The Reformer. Hello, Melanie.
Hello.
And I want to remind listeners that BCTV is filming this segment of Green Mountain Mornings, and broadcast of Green Mountain Mornings tonight on BCTV is sponsored by Brattleboro Savings and Loan. Melanie, let's talk a little bit about a really sweet story that appeared in The Reformer this week about a Purple Heart that was returned to a family after it had been picked up, we're assuming, at a tag sale.
Yeah, this was a great story, and also a shout out to Purple Hearts Reunited. Started out of St. Albans in 2012. It hasn't been around that long, but they've done some great work. And they tracked down the family of the person that the Purple Heart belonged to, and it's a great story. Who was it? Jeff Kaufman out of Brattleboro. You have to go through, his father passed away, and he had to go through his father's belongings, and I guess he came across this Purple Heart that he assumes that his father picked up at a tag sale or something like that, and, got a hold of Purple Hearts Reunited, and they tracked down the family of this man, and turns out he was quite the war hero. And so Jeff Kaufman got to go to New York City in a special ceremony, returning the Purple Heart. It really was a great story, and you like to see these vets remembered and honored and so forth. And as someone who grew up in a military family, I know that you want your loved ones to be appreciated for the sacrifices that they made, and it really, really touches home when I see that a vet is appreciated and respected like that in their family. So that was heartwarming, very heartwarming.
Yeah, from what I understand, if hopefully I'm saying this man's name right, the Purple Heart belonged to a man named Reuben Kelch from New York City. He was, in 1943, a gunner on a boat that was torpedoed by a German U-boat. Mm-hmm. And it was his acts of bravery in that incident that earned him the Purple Heart. And I guess Purple Hearts Reunited found one surviving relative, an 84-year-old niece. So they really had to look hard for Reuben's family.
Yes, I can imagine how much effort that must have taken, really.
So, yes, thank you for that really wonderful story. And I encourage folks, if you haven't read it, to head on over to the Reformer's website, reformer.com, and check that story out. Now, Melanie, because I'm asking, or I shouldn't just say asking, I'm pestering everyone with this question. Have you voted in the primary yet?
Not yet. No, I've been busy, but I will get there. Trust me, I will get there.
What did you think of the Senate forum that Susan Smallhair covered? I believe it was in Bellows Falls.
Yeah. Well, it's a primary, so it doesn't surprise me. There was not a whole lot of philosophical or political differences between the candidates. Mm-hmm. And I think that the story kind of explains that it was more about life experiences and so forth. I mean, they're all seem to touch on similar topics: the opioid crisis, education, school funding and performance, renewable energy, gay rights, healthcare. All important issues. Mm-hmm. And I think we touched on this before. The devil's in the details once they get in office.
Right.
We know pretty much where the Democratic platform stands on these major issues. So there wasn't a whole lot of difference there, and that's not surprising in a primary race. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to come down to basically name recognition, really.
Good point.
Yeah.
Well, the traditional wisdom in Vermont is it's very hard to unseat an incumbent.
It is.
And there are two incumbents in this
unless
race.
that incumbent is not satisfying their constituents, not showing up, not performing, not making themselves available. So, if that's how they're perceived, then the challenger has a chance.
This is true. That's a very, very good point.
Yeah.
I also feel it's very important, especially given the last two legislative sessions that more or less ended in a standoff. It's more important than ever before, that our legislatures are good at compromise and negotiation and getting everyone to the table.
And the governor, too.
And the governor, too. That would be, and the administration, that would all be very, very helpful. In fact,
There's
let's start there.
Tug and pull back and forth between the two, even when there's a Democrat in there and there's a, predominantly Democratic legislature, as we usually have. But there's always a little bit of give and take. But there was some contention between Scott and the legislature. But there were some issues they came together on, like the gun reform that, nobody ever thought would happen. And it happened.
This is true. Yes. Yeah, it's I'm kind of looking forward to. I feel that this gubernatorial race has not fully kicked off yet.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm looking forward to, once the primary passes and we have our clear front runners, to see those debates, because a lot of people really respected, and probably still do respect, Phil Scott as his work when he was the lieutenant governor, but I think he has squandered some of that goodwill. Recently.
Yeah.
And, we're going to have some interesting gubernatorial debates.
Yeah, and I think you're right, after the primaries, because people are kind of sleepy through the primaries, it's because of pretty much what I just said. They don't differ very much on the issues. And so, you're not hearing much contrast and much real debate. But when you get into the real race, then you have differing opinions and views on the issues, and so that's when it gets more interesting.
I definitely agree. Well, Melanie and I are going to head off to break. We have a couple meaty issues to discuss after the local news, so stay tuned, grab your coffee, and we shall return. This is Green Mountain Mornings, and you're listening on 100.3 FM, AM 1490. I am your host, Olga Peters. 37 minutes past the top of the hour. Welcome back, Melanie Winters, news editor for the Brattleboro Reformer. How are you, Melanie?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Now, there was a very interesting vote in Townsend recently. The voters voted 71-49 against a town-wide zoning study. And all this is kind of ripple effects from the Dollar General that's checking out, moving into town. Tell us, Melanie, what's happening there?
Well, right now they voted against it, but there's two sides of every story, as you know. There's some who formed this group called Save the Scenic Corridor, and they want to preserve the rural character and feel and charm of the Townsend area. And there are others who are saying, well, we don't want the town telling us what to do. We don't want some board saying, whether we can build a chicken coop or, what to do with our own land. So those are the two sides of the issue right there. Right now, it's not the story. It's not over yet. This was just a feasibility study. That doesn't mean the town can't still go ahead and create some zoning bylaws if there is enough support for it. I think it's interesting that the people that are talking about, not telling others what to do with their land. If they create the zoning bylaws, then they create what the zoning bylaws are, and what they are not. They don't have to be as intrusive as all of that, but still help preserve the character of the town. So, personally, when we've written editorials about this, you don't want, Dollar General was just one example of, big corporations and big block stores coming in and ruining the character of a town. And I was actually quite shocked when this all came about, that the town did not have zoning bylaws. And, people all up in arms, we can't have this, we can't have the Dollar General, and it's going to ruin us. And, well, there's one way to fix that, Right. Are we going to preserve the character of the town, or are they going to, just do just build a fence around their own property and just take care of their own. I mean, I guess that's a decision they have to make as a town.
Mm-hmm. Now, as I understand it, the Dollar General is an interesting issue, and it's still in the works. It hasn't been completely kiboshed. Okay. It's
interesting because the town does not have its own bylaws, and the plot of land is too small for Act 250
to
have any bearing on it. So there's no recourse now. The Dollar General can do what it wants, and that's a slippery slope there.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have bylaws in place to keep that in check, you have no control over where the direction of your town and the character of your town.
You bring up a really interesting point, Melanie, because you mentioned the folks who, I mean, zoning's a pain. We know that.
Yeah.
It's a pain to go before the DRB and get your permits and all that stuff. However, you bring up a really interesting point because the folks who are saying we don't want anyone to tell us what to do with our land, it also means that they have no control to tell anyone else, including Dollar General, what to do with their land.
Right. And what their next-door neighbor can do.
Right.
What if their next-door neighbor erects this, I don't know, I can't even think of an example, but just some huge eyesore that you have no control over. So your only recourse is to build a fence.
Mm-hmm.
That still doesn't help your property values.
Yeah, a motocross speedway or something.
Right. But, I mean, and like I said before, though, the town, and you get involved in creating these bylaws, and you have a say
mm-hmm.
in how expansive they are and how intrusive they are and so forth. So, it doesn't have to be, one extreme or the other. There can be a happy medium in there somewhere.
That is a very good point to add to the conversation, that we do often, when we are dealing with municipal issues, I think as citizens, we're so afraid of what we might lose
mm-hmm.
that we end up going to an extreme.
Right.
And that kind of slows the whole conversation down.
Yes. We see that in Washington all the time.
Gee.
Let's not have that here in Townsend.
No, let's find a third way.
Right.
Better path.
So hopefully folks will come together and work out their differences and come to a compromise, because I don't think they can go on with no zoning. If they want to preserve their town and the character of their town, they
mm-hmm.
need to have some kind of guidelines, at least guidelines,
Yeah.
Something. Yeah, a town plan, something.
And that brings us a little bit to talking about property and shifting spots. There's an interesting kind of he said, she said happening around the Phoenix House and the Brattleboro Retreat. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, the Phoenix House, they have a tapestry program, which is a program for women recovering from addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And these are women that are far along in the process.
Mm-hmm.
They're not just detoxing. They've already detoxed, and they're trying to, reintegrate into the community and get back their lives and so forth. So just preface that. But now, the Phoenix House, the folks from the Phoenix House and Tapestry Program sent out a letter to Bellows Falls saying that they were going to be looking into moving to 99 Atkins Street, which was the former Country Village Community Care House.
Oh, yes.
So, according to the letter, now we have not been able to contact them personally. We have tried several times. Our reporters tried several times.
Mm-hmm.
But according to the letter, they were told that their lease would not be renewed.
By the Brattleboro Retreat.
Now, the retreat is saying, well, no, that's not true.
Huh.
They wanted to expand their program, and the retreat could not accommodate that. So we're not sure. One side saying the one thing, and one side saying another. But it's interesting. Perhaps they, in sending out the letter, the Phoenix House maybe wasn't as careful in the wording. In how it might have come across. Like I said, we could not reach them personally
mm-hmm.
to follow up on that. Maybe there was just some poor phrasing in the letter or something that gave that impression. But I don't know. We'll have to follow up on that for sure to see what the real situation is. But
Right.
in any event, they want to move to Bellows Falls, and residents, of course, and the select board, of course, is taking a cautious approach to it. They're not sure how they feel about this, so they're kind of in the information gathering stage at the moment.
Have you had a chance to hear any of the concerns that either residents in Bellows Falls or the select board might be having?
Yes. Initially, I guess Bellows Falls, the zoning administrator decided that a special permit was not needed.
Right.
But a resident who lives right nearby, Darren Lanoy, challenged that determination. He said it filed an appeal. So that's kind of where they are now in the appeal process, or filing it. I don't think they've filed the appeal. I think they're like I said, they're in the information gathering stage. They've talked to their town attorney, and their town attorney is going to look into following through in that process. So they're still in the information gathering stage. So we got to see what happens with that.
Now, the Phoenix House / Tapestry program has been at the Brattleboro Retreat. I think they've been in the former Linden Lodge building.
Yep.
Since about 2007.
Yes. So it's been a few years, yeah.
Did Tapestry happen to mention what kind of expansion they wanted to make at the retreat?
No, like I said, we have not been able to reach them over the phone, but that definitely isn't a good follow-up question. Yes, we would be interested to get more information on that.
Mm-hmm. Just for the sake of listeners, I only happen to know this because I used to work at the at the retreat, and my department happened to have a lot of kind of interns or folks from Tapestry. They were gaining work experience and doing kind of community service, and they would work with my department. It's a really interesting program because it's geared mostly to women who are dealing with an addiction. They are now in recovery, but they also have some kind of criminal record component to their addiction.
Right.
And so part of what they're doing in this program is they're also serving out a prison sentence.
Okay.
And it's a really, I think it's an interesting program. I have seen some of the women I worked with really thrive. Yeah. And go on to build lives that they were really proud of and they thought they'd never be able to have. So I hope they do find a new landing zone wherever that happens to be.
I mean, and it's interesting. Everybody, agrees that there is a need for these programs, but, there's apprehension about where to put them,
Yeah, everyone loves the program as long as it's not on their street.
Not in my backyard,
Well, Groundworks ran into that to a certain extent when they were looking at some places in Brattleboro to put a shelter.
Yep. Right into the same problem,
Yeah, it's, I don't know. I wonder how, as a community, we balance that a little bit better. I can't say I have an answer.
You're right. Because I can understand the concern especially if you have small children, and so forth, and being, in close proximity to people that, you don't know, that people tell you, they're in recovery, but you don't know. You have children, you're nervous.
It's a parent's prerogative to be overprotective.
Yes, absolutely. So I understand that point of view.
So, Melanie, we are just about out of time, but I'm wondering what news items are kind of catching your attention right now. Anything else in the Reformer that we haven't covered recently that you want to just let listeners know they can go check out at reformer.com?
Well, let me see here. We have a story on the website right now. Curtis Reed. That's a familiar name to everybody.
Yes, it is. For the Vermont Partnership for Fairness and Diversity.
Yes, he has a Ben & Jerry's ice cream dream that the company create its first flavor in honor of a person of color.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, and he specifically mentions Colin Kaepernick, the football. How do you pronounce that last name? Kaepernick.
I believe that's how you pronounce it. Yes.
So that's interesting there.
Now, he was one of the folks who led some of the protests during the peaceful protests during the NFL season, where he was taking a knee in
Yes,
to
he
bring
was the one who kind of started the whole knee movement.
right to bring awareness of police, what he was seeing as police brutality
Yes,
against people of color.
So I'm not sure what flavor that would be, but it'd be interesting. Also, I just want to make a note. There is a Senate candidate forum.
Yes.
It's going to be at the River Garden in downtown Brattleboro tonight from 7 to 8:30.
Yes, definitely. Make sure you can get there if you can get there.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't make tonight's Senate forum, you can also make tomorrow's candidate forum at Brooks Memorial Library, which
Right.
they have an event up on Facebook. And it's talking, I think the candidates will be talking about the books that influence
this is
them.
an interesting approach, actually. The candidates are talking about their favorite book or favorite character in a book, I believe. I can't recall, but it's an interesting approach.
I agree because, candidates can make whatever promises they want.
Mm-hmm.
But what we as voters really need to know is when the rubber hits the road, are you going to negotiate? Are you going to throw a hissy fit? Are you going to find a new creative option? Like, who are you as a person and how do you deal with problem solving and adversity?
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for reminding us of those two events, Melanie. And, excuse me, it was really wonderful having you on the show today.
Thank you. It was wonderful being here.
I will talk to you in, 2 weeks?
Yes. 2 weeks are good.
Fantastic. In the meantime, folks, you can check out reformer.com for new and fresh news stories.